Alright, hello and welcome to another painting video. In this one I will be, I'm just going to be playing around. I don't really have anything in mind. It's been about a week since I did a video for y'all. But I did want to show you this. I'm going to lift it up close to the camera so it kind of focuses, and I'm going to set it back down. So it probably, does it focus? Yeah, it's right there. This was just small little thumbnail sketches from my mind, and it really helps to bring a book around and have something like that, and do thumbnail sketches and get ideas. Now, these guys might never get used. They might never be painted or anything like that, but it's almost like kind of just the flow of the moment and doing a whole bunch of them and getting them all out there, and then picking from them and seeing what you like, or seeing what theme was taking place. In hindsight, I don't know if I was doing it, but I realized I was doing just a generic shape and then doing the flipped image of it. And it happened here, it happened here. So I don't know if I was playing around with that. And then eventually I started playing around, I think, with just a very common shape we see within the watercolor painters and the Ron Ranson painters, where we kind of have that far distance shoreline and then the shoreline hook around in front of us. This was stuff from memory. This was like just the generic composition of the church with the trees in front on the side. But yeah, so it was kind of playing around with ideas and just getting them down and just making shapes. And that might help you when you're in a rut and whenever you want to get something, just like look at it and get an idea. So there's that. And I think we might maybe try picking one to paint from. I'm not sure if we will do that or not. I mean, we could pick one, but I don't know if it'll wind up coming to fruition, meaning, like we wind up, say, like, we'll try this one, or just look at that general theme of kind of that emptiness on the left, and then coming forward with a tree line. We'll see. So maybe that is what we'll go for. But yeah, so a little book like that is helpful. And I know whenever we travel, like artists in general and watercolors, we want to bring stuff with us, and sometimes it's not feasible to bring stuff with us, or sometimes we bring stuff with us but we're kind of busy the whole time, so we pack and plan for it, and that it doesn't happen. So one thing that is definitely easy to have occur whenever maybe you're going to a business meeting, waiting on something, or waiting in a lobby at a doctor's office, or riding on a bus or anything like that, have a little sketch pad just to get like ideas down. And in that case, all you need is the pen and paper, pencil and paper. I really like fountain pens, so I always have a mixture of fountain pens with me, and doing something like that not only lets me just kind of get compositional shapes down, but it also lets me play with the pens. So that might be something you might want to keep in mind. So through all that rambling, I have this quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua that I am saturating with water. I have my butcher pan, my palette on the side. I'm going to see how everything lines up in this video for y'all. We are getting a little bit of shadow from the tripod, but everything should be pretty good. Ooh. Now, while we let this soak, it's kind of a good time to always talk about the palette and think about what we might want to play around with. I've been on this Venetian red spree, that I've been playing around with. I think the last video we mixed our sap green with the Venetian red. That's kind of been that common theme lately. But we then utilized our ultramarine to push this greenish mixture that takes place in one direction of the green. And then we used, was it phthalo blue? I think it was phthalo blue. Paint doesn't want to get off. In the other direction. Then we used a little bit of cerulean blue for the sky, just a light wash. So we were using a limited palette and playing around with that. With this one, we're going to keep those options there, playing with those blues. And you could probably utilize, like if you don't have a phthalo blue, maybe a Prussian blue instead and an ultramarine, just to experiment and see how those affect the pushing back and forth. You could even play around with the cerulean blue and the ultramarine, any two combinations of blue. Just see how they affect your color mixtures. That's a good lesson in learning right in there. Just playing around with that. Yeah, so we're going to leave that option there. Also going to leave a burnt umber as a potential option, so that might be utilized. I don't know if you all remember, but I was on a burnt umber kick for quite a while where I was mixing in, you know, for my darks, I just was going straight to that burnt umber, utilizing that with my blues or greens just to mix it, or burnt umber and the Indothrone blue. That was a really fun combination. Let's get some fresh raw sienna in there. Maybe we'll experiment with that as well. So we're going to try to maintain light and easy. We might just get this generic idea taking place. It may not happen, but we'll see if we could come up with an idea. I feel like I had a potential lesson idea, and I feel like I am rambling, but it has been a week since I did a video, and I guess I'm off my game. Or maybe this is where I'm at when I don't do something for about a week. So just restretching these. I'll probably re-wet a little bit as well. Okay. So this time, this is how we're going to approach this one. I have, with this, been playing around with putting in the blocking shapes in first, and then wiping and subtracting with the paper towel. So we'll have that aspect, the wiping and the adding and subtracting. But I think we will work in the more Ron Ranson style of putting the sky in and work everything forward. So we'll do kind of a layering effect with this one, with the whole image. So let's get a little bit of a light wash of raw sienna. We could put a little bit of alizarin in there. I find that unless you like really go to town with the alizarin crimson, it really doesn't show up too much at the end, but it does add a little nice little hum to everything. And then let's get a little bit of ultramarine. and everything kind of blend together. Now, one thing that I find myself falling into the trap of is that I'll have a full left to right sweep across it, but it's perfectly fine to gradiate from left to right as well as up and down. So like we're gradiating blue to this raw sienna, but it's fine to have maybe like a slight darkness change, or maybe we could even mix in a little lemon yellow just to show into that ultramarine, to add like a little bit of greenish to the one side of the sky. It's okay to change from left to right as well. So keep that in mind, and that'll have a change to take place. Now, I'm going to grab that Venetian red, or, you know, like I said, I kind of use that interchangeably with light red, with ultramarine blue. This is going to be a purplish mixture. And we're going to put in that far line. And do above and below. This will get cut off by the mat, but it's good to kind of extend past the edges. That was a weird way to pronounce past the edges of the mat, to kind of get that whole scene going. It's kind of like when somebody's teaching you how to throw a baseball, or I guess I never played golf, but to follow through with your swing, I'm assuming, and you're kind of following through over to the edge. Same thing with clouds and everything like that. And that's with the fast and loose, to get that whole feel taking place. With if you tape your edges, you can just swipe right over the paper. That's fine. In the beginning, I taped my edges, but I found that the clips, and you could use the binder clips or the bulldog clips, I find that those things work out a lot better for me. Where if I was to tape my edges, I get that warping to take place, and I can't get it to flatten out. So that was affecting me quite a bit. Okay, and I believe we were going to bring our shape up here. We're going to have it build up and come forward. So this is kind of the usual style that I paint in, where just kind of putting this in, and sometimes I'll dry off at this stage and then do the next layer, or I'll just keep on working my way forward and adding more pigment. With this one, what I am wanting to try is to do a dry off and then switch to our other technique that we've been practicing with. So this is kind of a mishmash of, you know, just seeing what happens. What can we mix together? What can we develop? And doing that, I think, will help us stay loose and experimental. So we'll do a dry off. The paper is quite... Actually, do we need to do a dry off? Let's think for a moment. Okay, I got a big old glob of Venetian red. Trying to mix it to the greenish side now with the sap green. Okay, so a little bit greener now. Mix ultramarine in there to push it back. So I grabbed a lot of Venetian red, but let's just try this out right in this. This is kind of our mid-ground trees. This is where it's going to be right there. Okay, and I'm going to wind up doing another layer over this with, I think, stronger. I'm trying to find somewhere to put this brush. Let's see what kind of textures we can put into this. So everything is wet and wet still. So far the deviation has been, rather than using that mixture and putting just the blocks in and then doing this, we set up a background and we let everything wet and wet. And this is just an effort to get textures and shapes and foliage. Then we'll come right back over it. Do the same. Because as we do this, we're pulling moisture out. So you can come back and spritz if need be, or just come back in and kind of just going with it. Let's mix some phthalo blue. Oh, that's a lot of phthalo blue. Such a strong pigment. Soften these guys. You can come in with the rigger. This is where I'll use we'll use burnt umber just to vary it up. You can see everything's wet and wet still. It's diffusing. Let's get some, throw some Payne's Gray in the mix. I'm trying to chase some of these parts with Payne's Gray. I feel like we're kind of getting more of like a, we are going to get it dry and a change to the feel and whatnot, but it does feel a little, I don't know if the word would be whimsical for this, like a fresh and vibrant. Color. I don't want to get too monotonous with that Payne's Gray, so let me switch up to just another mixture. We can take the edge of our card put some rocks in. And what I'm going to try to do, at this stage it's still wet. If I scrape it, you see how it just backfills. I'm going to try to put the card on an angle and scrape on an angle so it's a wider scrape taking place. Let's see if I can get that. Yeah. See how I can twist it and narrow it? I'm not sure if my hand's in the way. So I'm just trying to get, and I'm doing that so I could get a scrape at this point in time. So we're getting some interesting playing around taking place. That's a good experiment right there too, to vary the width of that line. Those scrapes. One thing that helps, and I had gotten overzealous with this when I had first started, was cutting a card into a whole bunch of different shapes. So now I'm just come back over with it, that mixture. This is with that phthalo blue, just making it so green. Let's see how just saturated dark we can get. This is mixing in burnt umber and the phthalo blue into this. And what I'm shooting for is a variety of tones and softness and light dark edges to kind of get a depth happening here. One thing that is a little awkward for me is it feels like everything's falling forward in this direction. So what I may need to do is pull an edge and create a different shoreline right there. So maybe something like that would help me out. I may need to have a stronger shape coming up and standing up over here. Maybe that'll help balance that out as well. But I just get the feeling that everything's leaning and falling, which, you know, can speak to the properties of the trees and just growing out and expanding out over the lake and everything feeling lush and whatnot. Even though we do have those browns in there, we could get the idea that everything's starting to grow. I'm gonna have to darken this back side to help this guy come forward. So we put Payne's Gray on there, so sometimes I'll just use and really just put Payne's Gray in. Some people hate it, some people love it. Within the Ron Ransom books, I believe he used it, but I don't think he used it by itself. I think he might have changed it, mixed it with the alizarin crimson for stuff in the sky. But James Fletcher Watson would use it by itself for distant water, I believe. I personally like it by itself as the underhanging edge of grass or anything along water or ice. Now I'm splattering some here, and that's fine. If that happens, just, you know, roll with it. So we can still see that everything's still wet, everything's still diffusing. And what that'll allow us to do is do a final dry off, and we could leave it all soft, or we can put a few more striking lines. With this curvature here, you can leave it soft, or you could come in and scrape into it. You could add some variety and break it up. A little more rocks. I might have to come up over these guys. And this is, I guess we're working with what I talked about earlier, how it will help push back and add a depth effect there. Sometimes I like this, sometimes I don't. You can get an effect, and here I'm just sliding it. It's very easy to happen, where you can see the texture of the paper very well. Like I said, some people like it, some people don't. So it's good, just lesson with the card, lesson with the wet and wet, the softness, and pushing things around. Anyway, now's a good time to say, down below I have a whole bunch of different links. You know, feel free to like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon page if you're into that. I have an Etsy account if you're interested in any of my paintings. I usually put most of these paintings up there for sale, so feel free to check that out, and if there's anything you like, let me know. What else? I have the Instagram. If there's if you have questions or comments on what I did, or if you have any suggestions or ideas or stuff you'd like to see, let me know that as well. I like this to be experimental and fun. Oh, feel free to follow along. I don't know if I mentioned that. You are more than welcome to follow along with these paintings and paint and whatnot, and show me results. I'm really excited to see how you guys are doing with this. So I think we got an interesting liveliness with this one. It's different than what I usually do. And I think it was a combination of the wet and wet at the beginning, kind of just placing everything in the far distance, the softness, and then really punching with the pigments. Let's see if we can rely on the scraping to pull a little bit out of this. One thing you can think about, I was thinking, man, it should probably be a little bit darker. Instead of trying to get things darker, if you think that it needs to go that direction, change something around it or part of it lighter and see if that has an effect as well. Try changing the opposite aspect of it. That might get you what you need. Let's do a dry off, see. Alright, I still have some areas that are damp, but I'm going to go over this in some closer regions and kind of just add a little bit more, just harsher edges and a little bit more contrast. But one of the reasons I love this paper is how it for me, it dries relatively flat. So I think that's what really draws me to the Stonehenge Aqua, that and its ability to handle those scraping and kind of like harsh attacks with cards and whatnot. This is very dark what I'm putting in right here. I might need to mix a green to put over this. So let's grab some of that sap green and see what we can do with that. It's not working. Let's mix a little bit of raw sienna into this to lighten it up. There we go. So I had that dark mix and we needed some variety in it. So we had mixed in the sap green some more, but it wasn't enough. So some raw sienna mixed in helped push that. And I could use the card to create all the branches all throughout this closer piece. We could have closer lying bushes on either side of this. Took a 2-hour nap after work. That was just great. I don't know if it's the time change or what, but something has just been just haven't been catching up, I feel like. The weekend's almost here. I'm gonna get some paintings done. I donated a watercolor. One of my students was like, "Oh, Mr. Russo, you got any you want to donate a painting?" And I was like, "Well, to what?" She's like, "Oh, we're doing a cake bingo for band, and we're gonna do a silent auction." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I always big proponent of donating your artwork to charity events and things like that. And I always tell people I will pretty much immediately say yes if you want a donation or anything like that. I have an oil painting in my car that I need to get to my friend for his Rotary Club auction. That one will go to helping local fundraising, like purchases, community projects that they do, and that's good as well. So I'm excited about that. I'm friends with the student's family and the band director, so I gotta ask them to get pictures of the auction table so I can get posted online and hopefully get more people to go. That's always a tough thing when you're in an organization fundraising. It always feels like y'all are fundraising like everybody. I mentioned these videos that I coach with the powerlifting team and all that, and there's always, when we put on meets, that's like a fundraiser. And, we did car washes in the past and whatnot. This is a fun painting. I really like this change of pace. And I like talking while I paint. I hope you enjoy that as well. I I have a vinyl record player, and I like to put music on and paint and explore, different records. Bought a bunch of J.J. Cale. If you ever listened to him, he's great. My dad told me about him when I was in high school, and I found like 3 or 4 of his records for 50 cents, and I picked them up. And they're really good. I was listening to them when I was packing some paintings to ship out. But unfortunately, during these videos, I can't listen to music. I could probably put on headphones and whatnot and talk to y'all, and you guys wouldn't hear the music. I've had gotten comments on the page, and here I'm not really putting much detail in. I'm putting detail in, but I'm just having fun and just getting scripty with it. Sorry. I had gotten comments on the page that people liked everything in real time and hearing the talking in real time. So if that's something y'all like, I'll continue to do that. My friend Miss Margaret, said she wasn't a big fan of music playing while there was painting, or maybe it was a little bit difficult to discern between the talking and the painting, the music. So So we'll do a dry off in a second. We'll put it underneath the mat, take a look, and then I'll photograph it and I'll put it up online. I'll put it up on Etsy if anybody wants it. Dab this a little bit. This side of the rigger, just catching that the texture paper is what I'm doing right there. This is the cold press paper. I used a lot of Arches Rough in the beginning, and I find like when I paint on Arches, I get a different effect. And Arches is good, I like it. It's just, I feel like for some reason this is just my go-to paper. I guess I don't know if it's the price point or what. Like I had said earlier, like it does handle the scraping well, it does flatten well when I dry it and whatnot. Anyway, so maybe that's another video I can do. I can grab some of the Arches paper that I have somewhere and show you the rough texture and how you can use that edge and catch those. But anyway, so let me dry it off, we'll put the mat, and we'll sign it, and I hope you enjoyed. One thing I always have reservations about is where to sign, especially something like this. I mean, here it'd be so prominent and here it'd be so hidden. And I think it's I think this one I'll hide it a little bit. It's definitely the choice of the artist, but it can affect potential buyers with it. I'll tell you all the story as I put this mat over it. I don't know how far people get into these videos, but if you got to the end, you got a little story for y'all. So they painted the walls of the weight room, and they made it really nice, and they just put, you know, awesome stuff all over the place. And you know, in the center we had a school logo, and the students that had painted it, like, let's say this was a logo, they signed alongside it their names like that big, just in different fonts and different sizes, and it was just like, oh my god, you know, you guys did so great, and then you just did that, you know, just splattered it. It was just it was a little rough. So anyway, there you go. That was a little story for y'all. So here you go. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm gonna sign off now. Yep. Have a great day. Bye.